hold on. That got changed. Why does this always do this to me? You can come closer. They can see my face.
We're on.
Oh, we're on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hello, everyone who's turning into our election special? No.
Interview?
As part of the new way we want to do engage the people and to open up the board and the workings of the board to everyone, we passed in March of 2021 a new format for people who want to be in the elections. The format is as follows. They're going to have a brief introductory paragraph, followed by up to 30 minutes of questions by the board and 30 minutes of questions by people who've attended, or in this case, the chat. These questions will be read aloud and, of course, entered into the record. I like to thank everyone who showed up here. Remember, the really fun and creative and constructive and satisfying thing we do, I'm sorry, Tristan kind of threw a thing, is only works because of your involvement and your interest. So thank you again. So our first candidate for the board is Chelsea Leeser, correct?
Leeser.
You're close. Leeser, okay, I apologize. And Chelsea, first of all, I apologize I call you Chelsea. My ex-name was Chelsea, and I do that sometimes. Chelsea, if you could give a brief introduction as per, we discussed.
Okay, my name's Chelsea. I'm also more commonly known as Buttons. I am running for the board. So one of my big goals is, and just the overall purpose I think I wanted to join is, while COVID has definitely brought on some challenges, it also brings the unique opportunity for change. I think as things start coming back, there are a lot of different policies and processes that we can improve on. And because things are coming back so slowly, it provides an opportunity to do so. One of my examples for this would be with our community events. I think this provides us, as we hopefully find a coordinator for those events, we can work on how we advertise them. Previously, it was mostly just online. I think we have a very good opportunity to maybe partner with some local game shops, or even just put some flyers up in a grocery store to reach people who don't follow us on social media, people who've never heard of us or Anime Twin Cities, to bring in new people, to bring in new families, and to broaden our community scope. I think another thing that we are currently looking at, and should still be looking at, is our rental policy. I think with reviewing that this year, it is something that actually should be probably reviewed at least every other year to make sure we're staying current, and that what we are charging will actually cover the cost if something is lost or damaged. I think with everything going on, this is the time for us to make the changes and to bring in new ideas, because the pandemic has changed things, and this is the best time for us to make those changes with it. My goal for being on the board is to bring in these new ideas, to use my experience in other areas, whether it be with Detour or even with the business resource group at my job, where I mainly focus on LGBT issues, but still gives me an opportunity of how to expand on different events to get those out there, and just working with the group to bring in some fresh ideas and new takes on everything. I'm sorry, I'm really bad at public speeches. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you very much for that, your introduction. I appreciate it. I don't know why you think you're bad at public speaking, because you were very good in my opinion. So the next section, of course, will be board questions. Board members here, do we have anyone online from the board besides the four here?
Not as yet.
Okay. So does anybody want to begin? Well, if nobody wants to begin first, then I'll question. You mentioned in your speech that you do this is just LGBTQ plus issues. As you probably know in the history of Anime Detour, Anime Twin Cities, that there has been well, let's just say, all 4 chairmen have been white guys, straight white guys as far as I know. And we have, the boards, previous boards have acknowledged that we seem to have an issue with attracting alternative people to straight white guys to leadership positions. Do you have an idea of what you want to do or how we can change that?
Yeah, I think one of the big ways to change that is to just market the acceptance. One of the things I did do while social media with Detour is for Pride Month, for specific like coming out, National Coming Out Day, was just make posts about being inclusive. The more that we show we are inclusive, the more comfortable people will be to come to us as staff or just even as attendees. The more we show we are a safe and welcoming space, the more people will come.
Thank you. Does anybody else have a question?
In the past, we, as the board, have expressed and tried to make it very clear to people that we are not just Anime Detour. What is your stance on the other facets of Anime Twin Cities?
I think we don't do enough marketing for those events. I will say, as someone, before I became staff, I didn't know these other events existed. We don't put enough emphasis on them. While Detour is the main event, I think our other events are great and we need to get them out there, which is why even just doing something as printing up flyers for like the picnic or cosplay on ice and getting them out there in local stores, even just a grocery store, just showing people that they are there, that these events are for the community, can help expand on people realizing that we are more than just our convention.
Okay, going along that idea, I asked questions about a certain category of our members, but in an overall general sense, especially like cosplay on ice and stuff, we were very reliant on 1 or 2 people. How, in this day and age, especially after COVID in the world of the cell phone, how can we, I mean, it's hard to get volunteers at the convention. How do we do it outside of it? What are we mailing? What are we missing? Is it just opportunity? What do you think about that?
I think, and this is something that I was kind of playing around with, is possibly maybe ATC just needs a few more meetings outside the board meetings to get people to come in to see what volunteering would be for, what it's about. Board meetings can be intimidating for new people. So to have meetings outside of that, of like, hey, you can just come talk to us. We can tell you what our community events are for, what we like to see, what we're looking for in volunteers, to get more people interested in the community itself, outside of the, oh God, it's a scary board meeting.
Alright, so you listed a whole bunch of things that you think would be good to change or improve on in your little speech at the beginning there. Let's say you get to choose one thing that you're going to change during your time on the board. What one thing do you think is the most important to change?
I think how we market our community events. From what I saw in previous years, it was very social media reliant, and while social media is a great tool, you're typically only going to get people who already follow you or are aware of you. I think we need to expand outside of that range, and Dave will like this, go a little old school, to expand our reach to people who don't know what Anime Twin Cities is. So if they don't know what we are, they're not going to follow us on Facebook or Instagram, what have you. So we need to get out there and we need to market better.
So to take a little bit of a different track on things, so this is kind of a two-parter, well, multi-parter. So we'll just break it down to the first question. Are you familiar with the board bylaws and or policies that we currently have?
I have done brief overviews of reading them. I have not read all of them in depth.
Okay. So with the bylaws and policies that you're aware of, can you give us examples of some that you think are good and some that you think we should change?
I think overall our bylaws are pretty steady. I think our bylaw for quorum is very good because obviously what we don't want is one person who shows up at a meeting in the middle of a blizzard and goes, I want it, it's gonna happen, lol. Too bad it's here now. I do also really like the new structure we have for voting, giving people not, making it detour postmortem to where people only show up for this meeting so they can vote and then they lead on out. It makes it more separated, which is I think a good thing because there is a lot of people who think that Anime Twin Cities is just detour. And having that separation and beginning to do more of that separation can lead to, I guess, more of an understanding of what Anime Twin Cities is. Off the top of my head, I don't really have one that I think that would need to work on. I think I'd have to read them a little bit more to see which ones I would potentially like to see a change to.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a personal, more personal relationship question. As you may or may not know, my campaign when I ran for president and won was the idea that detour was the most important part of this, and we existed for detour. And I was not that the other things we do, like we want to, are bad or not good, but that our main concentration was detour, and that my idea is to keep the board and the chairman separate, because I believe that there should be one person and his executive team in charge of the board. Do you agree with our, there are other cons, like say, for example, convergence, where board members have their own ability to change things within the convention. You don't have to agree with me, but what I mean, I would like your opinion on which board structure you'd prefer, and which structure you prefer or would you like to see?
I definitely prefer our structure. I think when you have it to where board members can just start making changes, that is where you lead to infighting, where you have people get upset that you're going behind somebody's back, or that can possibly be what they feel. That leads to a lot of fighting within an infrastructure, and I think just leads to a lot of negativity. Whereas if you have them separate, then you have somebody who feels enabled and empowered to make their own choices. They don't have to feel like they have to toe this invisible line, or that if they do something that the board doesn't like, there's not going to be a discussion. It's just going to be, they're just going to change it. I feel like if you have that, then it leads to, well, why do I bother doing anything then?
Thank you.
What are your thoughts on the board's current bylaws pertaining to elections and or removals of board members?
So I think we have a pretty good structure. I understand why the 2-term limit exists. I do think right now, because we have a problem with finding people, it is a little bit to our own detriment. It could be something that we maybe need to look at, as we just are not finding people who want to put the time in and are not willing to be candidates. It's something we may have to review and possibly make changes to.
Apologies, last time we did this, we had a list of questions that were set up. We can't find the documents, so apologies.
Are you done?
I have one more question. I just want to look it up first.
No problem.
That you pretty much answered all the questions I had in her speech.
As far as our
Ginger powers. Blue right now.
So as far as our bylaws go, how often do you think they should be reviewed and or modified if necessary?
I know it's a lot of work, which is why it's something I'm thinking on. I would say every 2 to 3 years at least be reviewed. I know it is something that is a very huge undertaking, so I think it should be done frequently, but not so often that it is literally consuming somebody's life.
Okay.
I think if we do keep it like 2-3 years, it is something that there's going to be the bylaws that you feel are fine with. You can just kind of do that quick review, but it lets us stay current and it makes sure that the next time bylaws do need to be changed, it's not to the point where we are stressing people out.
So, with the assumption that you get elected to the board, what are you going to do to help you fully understand what a board member is able to do and or does, and what steps you're going to do to make sure that you're prepared?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm elected, it is going to be me taking the time to fully review in depth all of the bylaws. I have done just the overall scans of reading them. Just taking the time to actually review, make sure I understand what it is I'm doing, so that if I do decide that I want to bring something up, that what I'm bringing up can actually be voted on, and I'm not just wasting my fellow board members' time with something that can't even be done in the first place. So basically, just making sure I do my research.
Okay. Are you familiar with Robert's rules? Are you familiar with Robert's rules?
Not with Robert's rules.
Okay. In the event that we come across a situation that we don't have a specific bylaw for, we default to Robert's rules for what to do in that situation. Nice big book about that thick.
There's a condensed version too.
There is, but if you want the full book, it's about like this thick. It basically is how to govern an organization like this. So I would recommend looking into those as well.
Good, then. Some questions.
Are you going to ask those questions?
I've been working my way through them.
Oh, did you find them?
I finally found them, yes. I've been working up through them by memory.
Oh, okay. I mean, if I really wanted to, I could probably dig around and find them. But
I think those are the questions that are remaining to ask. I don't know if they're required to be asked, but if you wish to ask them, please do so.
Not exactly required, it's just a list I made up last time that I felt of great importance.
And that's why you're here.
So next question, or one question that I have actually, because we are a volunteer organization, we have lives outside of this organization, personal, that we always will state and support that your personal life comes before the priorities of this organization, hands down. With that being said, when it comes to communications, such as answering emails, what is the longest you feel that it is appropriate for someone to take to answer an email?
3 business days.
Okay.
And that is the absolute longest before I start harassing people for an answer.
And I kind of hinted at this earlier when I was asking about your awareness of our bylaws. Are you aware of, since we are a 501c3 nonprofit, we are federally registered, as well as with the state we are registered. That means that there are certain laws above and beyond our internal organizations, be they policies or bylaws, that we are required to follow. Are you familiar with any of those legal obligations?
I am familiar with, I guess, a few, just in regards to what essentially we'd be able to do and what we kind of can't get into because we are a 501c3. As far as like political wise, there are just things we cannot do or say, we can't comment on, we can't be a part of. But it is something I intend to look more into as far as what else specifically we need to be aware of as we are a nonprofit.
Okay. Another one, this is actually going to be coming up here in the next few months, is regarding our annual reviews. In the past, we have had situations, new board members get a little bit of leeway on this, but in the past, we have had situations where So to clarify, our annual review process is each of the board members is expected to provide some sort of a review, some feedback on each of our coordinators for over the last year. In the past, we have had situations where several board members have just flat out done nothing. What is your stance on board members not doing anything during the review process?
If you're not doing anything in the review process, why are you a board member? It is an expectation that you are giving your review, you are putting in the time, because if a coordinator doesn't get feedback, how are they supposed to make those improvements? If you do not give a review, you cannot later complain that the coordinator is not doing what you want them to do.
Okay.
We done?
Anybody else take a few questions?
No, but we're done our questions. That's why we're waiting on you.
Oh, okay.
You're the one who has the list.
You the one has that list.
Okay, this wasn't a list that I exactly sent out to people last year. I know I sent it to a couple people. This was just a list that I made up.
Right, and some of us don't. This is the list you want answered as a board member.
Fair enough.
Make
Fair
it
enough.
right.
Sorry, I didn't want to.
No, the rest of us are good.
As it was.
Go ahead.
So going back to ATC as a whole, its various branches, communications, SOS, communities, detour, and charities. What is the role of the board? What is the board's purpose in that umbrella?
I think in that umbrella is just to make sure that, you know, in a perfect world where we have all those coordinators who are running these branches, the board's job is essentially just to ensure that the bylaws and policies are being followed. They can tell coordinators what they would like to see, certain goals that maybe they want to see those coordinators reach, and are just there to be a kind of a guidance, not there to dictate. And if those goals are not met and it's something that, you know, isn't due to a freak pandemic and what have you, then making those decisions on if the coordinator cannot reach the goals we set for them, do we need to look for a different coordinator?
Okay.
If that were to happen, what would be your approach to talk to that board member?
Or the coordinator?
Or coordinator, excuse me. What would be your approach to that?
Yeah, I think if the coordinator, let's say, didn't meet those goals, it's just having that conversation with them and to see what happened. You know, was this something that was outside forces? Like, let's say, you know, another more popular event happened at the same time, or, you know, again, we have a pandemic. COVID ruins everything. And just seeing, is this something where the coordinator acknowledges, like, hey, yeah, I definitely should have done better. Here's my plan to improve. And is that improvement plan acceptable? Or if it's, you know, someone who's just like, I don't care, like, I didn't meet it, oh well, then taking the stance and, you know, talking among your fellow board members of, hey, if they don't care about this, are they going to care about everything else? And what can we do to either help them, or do we need to start finding that replacement?
In that same situation, how many quote-unquote chances would you give them to correct their actions before other actions were taken?
I'm a big believer in second chances. I think if they're showing that they are making the improvements and they are trying, then let them continue. If they are showing that they don't care and that they're not willing to make those improvements or go into that step in the right direction, then it's time to find a replacement.
Any questions in chat?
Well, actually,
that comes after us.
That comes after.
Yep. We get the first 30 minutes, of which we have about another.
9.
Thank you. Thank you.
As board members, sometimes we have to make difficult and uncomfortable choices. How do you handle difficult situations? If you're expected like to provide an answer for a particularly tough situation. What is your mental process for how you go about doing
As I
it?
have flashbacks to social media.
I know.
Giving
I'm
you more
ignoring
flashbacks.
I'm asking what goes on in your
Yeah.
brain.
It's difficult decisions are not easy. It's knowing when you need to take a step back mentally and just do that inner review. I think a big thing for my process is before I have to publicly make that decision, or whether it be like in person, online, what have you, is making sure I've taken the time to do that review in my mind, to make sure that I'm at a point where I'm not making that decision emotionally. I'm making this intelligently.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I
we're
know.
doing that right now.
I know. So, kind of branching off of the coordinators and John's question regarding repercussions. In the situation that a member of Anime Twin Cities, that being someone who has paid their dues, making them one, if that member is removed from a branch of ATC for violating our codes of conduct, but the board did not remove them from the remainder of the organization. Do you feel that would be a concern, and how would you address that?
I do think that would be a concern, because if they were removed for violating Anime Twin Cities code of conduct, then I think that is something that we should be taking a look at to make sure, one, this was a violation of our code of conduct, and two, if they violate it in one branch, what is it, it sadly is very likely they would violate it in other branches. So I think having a talk with that coordinator to see what exactly happened, what was violated in that code of conduct, and then making that informed decision to ensure that we don't have repeat scenarios in every other branch. Because just removing them branch by branch is not effective. It just causes for more instances and can cause for a bad image or bad reputation for Anime Twin Cities.
When it comes to a situation like that, so someone violated some code of conduct point at, let's say they did it at an SOS event. We decide, based on what you just said here, we'll go along with that. We'll say, okay, well, we're going to remove them from all events. Do you think that all bans should be permanent? Do you think there should be path to redemption on some things but not others? What's your view of what comes after that step where we remove them from all events?
Yeah, I think a large part of it would depend on just what code of conduct they broke. And there can be paths to redemptions for certain ones. I think there are others, like if we're talking like harassment and bullying, then no, sorry, like we don't need you harassing other members of our community. I think, again, like I said, I'm a believer in second chances, so if there is a path to redemption, I would like to see it, but there are, I think, some cases where people don't want to change their behavior, and unfortunately, we can't force them to change, and we also can't put our other members at risk of having to deal with that.
We have 4 minutes left for board questions, so please, if you have any specific ones, please ask them now.
Was that all for that question? Okay. So in the last, I just wanted to make sure that you didn't just interrupt her on her breath. So COVID being a thing, cons didn't happen and money got tight. So if that were to happen again in a situation where the funds of the organization are starting to get tight, and we do have to start reducing things, where do you think we should start?
I mean, as sad as it is, the first place to start would be the SOS events. Unfortunately, while they are great, but in the events of like, COVID, large people gathering during a pandemic is never a good thing. But we also have to make sure that we are doing things that are fiscally responsible. And if we are just spending the money on something that does not provide the funds in return, that takes away from the thing that makes us money and makes sure we can continue.
Okay. That answers about all of the
Okay.
questions that I need.
Ally?
You good?
So, thank you very much for the board for answering these interesting, pertinent questions. We're now moving on to questions from the members. Do we have any in chat, Tristan?
A few.
Oh, good. Can you read the first one for us, please?
Oh, there's people, but no questions.
Oh, no, I mean, okay, then we'll give 3 minutes for the chat to have questions. They don't have to if they don't want to, but if they do have questions, now would be the time. Do you have a question, Clarissa? I'm Charlie's brown teacher. Anyway. Thank you very much for your participation. So we'll wait a few minutes for questions, and you'll let me know if we have one.
You want me to read this one off while you're typing whatever you're typing?
Okay,
Or do you want me
so I get it. Do you feel that Amy Johnson asked in the chat? Do you feel that the high number of staffing, staffing vacancies, and the perceived lack of interest in filling these positions is a board issue? What do you think ATC board should do to fill the vacancies?
Like as far as coordinators, or
I think she's talking about detour.
I mean, that's a detour issue.
Can we ask Amy to clarify her question?
She can hear us.
Okay.
I think it's basically, when does it become such a problem where the ATC step in? And what would they do? Because our vacancies are growing, people are not stepping up. How much of a problem would it have to be for ATC?
She specified coordinators.
Okay.
Because currently we do have 5 branches of coordinators. Dave is overseeing the charities. I'm overseeing 3 of them, and Troy is currently our only sitting coordinator.
And
we've been looking for several.
our treasurer currently helps me fill the secretary position.
That's a board, not a coordinator.
Yes, but that wasn't she. Okay.
She specified coordinator.
Yeah. Thank you for your correction, Kristen. But please answer the question.
Yeah, I think it goes back to earlier just getting volunteers in general, is I think Anime Twin Cities having these meetings outside of board meetings, so they are less intimidating for people to be able to come in and ask questions like, well, as a coordinator, what would be expected of me? What does Anime Twin Cities do? What would I be a part of? Just giving a less intimidating atmosphere, I think can bring in more people to feel a little more comfortable reaching out to see if it's something they are interested in. As much as it doesn't need to be, board meetings are intimidating. They can be scary. You're walking in on something that's already set. This is something that's live streamed. Having something separate from that, I think, gives a little bit more of a comfortability and a little bit more of an informal feeling, so people don't feel like they have to come in for an interview off the bat.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is there any other questions or follow-up from me?
Others yet, but we can wait. Last year we gave it 10 minutes, just because people do come and go.
Yeah, but that's great, but I'm not giving them 10 minutes. Thank you.
Maybe fun coffee hour with ETC. Just have like coffee hour.
I was thinking about a president's parlor.
Ooh.
It's more of a guideline. Anyway, but if we have the chairman chats at the con, that's a great idea. Something that's not videotaped, and they can hang out with board members, and I can go out and eat because I like to eat. So that's a great idea. But I'm going to write, even if you don't win, but I'm going to steal that
That's okay.
right away.
You can put her in charge of that stuff. Board member or not.
Are you doing this because I like to plan things and I like to cook?
We have a question from Clarissa in the corner.
It's an idea-ish question, for like, if you want to do, I like separate meeting things, but vary them, don't make it same time, same day, because again, people have lives, they're very different.
Sure.
So like, if they can't come on Tuesday night 7, they can make it, like Friday night 6 or something very late.
Could,
That's my idea.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
could you move 3 feet to the left?
This, am I not in screen?
You are immediately behind a pillar. We can see a pillar with arms.
I don't think she wants to.
You've just given her a reason not to move.
It's true.
Clarissa was not asking a question, to be clear, Amy. She was proposing that if we do start doing meetings, as Chelsea suggested, outside of the board meetings, to vary the times and days that those happen, because people have varying schedules.
No, we're just almost done.
Yeah.
It's almost done.
Yeah.
Anyway, have there been any questions on the board, Ally or Tristan?
Nope, still waiting.
Okay.
We've got a few people.
Yeah, I understand, but I'm going to move on. Thank you very much for answering these questions. Everyone, I'll announce at the end that everyone will be getting an email if they can vote, and with details on how to vote and what time to vote. Thank you again. I'm hoping that if anybody else has any questions that they want to talk to you directly, that they can reach you at Chelsea,
We will
Lisa,
put their email in the
Animate.
chat.
Thank you, Tristan. Okay, so we'll at Chelsea Lisa at animatedetour.com. Thank you again. And those who are watching, we're going to take a small break here before we talk to John. So let's give about 10 minutes, okay? Can you mute things?
Eventually.
So now's the time I pick my nose, right?
Yes.
What? You literally said that as I unmuted and turned on the picture.
Thank you, everybody, and the picking of nose by John is further entertainment that we would like you to enjoy at our meeting. Now we're going to interview John Itzen. By the way, do you always prefer me go when I'm saying your full name, John Itzen the fourth?
It's actually the 6th. VI is Roman numeral 6.
Yes, but I may be dyslexic. John Itzen the sixth. John Itzen's fine. Yeah.
Yes,
He's running for re-election, and so he begins with a 2 to 3 minute speech about what he's done and what he wants to do.
Oh boy. So, hi, John Itzen here. Already been on the board for 2 years now. You've seen the stuff that we've been able to accomplish, to include keeping ATC afloat during the pandemic, which, for the record, was not an easy task. I'd like to continue to see ATC grow as a whole, not just Detour or not just SOS or charities, but as a whole. We need to really buckle down on our recruiting for this and actually get things up and moving now that COVID is mostly over. We now have that ability to actually start doing that, so I feel we should start actively recruiting for that and finding people who are interested in running one of the offshoots of ATC. Let's see, what else? Yes, last convention for Detour was absolutely amazing, but it would have definitely benefited for having more staff. So I feel that's something that we should also look at and talk with Troy about, come up with good ideas for how to get more staff members on Detour itself, because it was a little bit rough. But we did a wonderful job, everybody, so thank you for that. But yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell at this point, so questions you got?
Thank you, John. Now we're going to move to board questions. I'll start off. Do you agree that the effectiveness of the board officers review, do you agree that let me try this again in English. The board officers review, is it effective?
When done properly, yes, I do. It's just right. One of the problems we've had in the past is board members not doing the reviews entirely, and that's obviously a problem, because then if we don't have feedback, how do we know where to improve on? So it would be beneficial if we were able to get everybody to contribute to be able to do that, so we all get our own feedback from other board members, so we can, I guess, be better board members. That's something that I've always strived to do, is try and give appropriate feedback at the appropriate time. I don't always succeed at the appropriate time part, but it's the thought that counts, right? So yes, when they're done properly, they do work well.
Okay.
So moving forward into, let's just make it the next year instead of the next full term.
Sure.
What one thing do you think is the most important to address at the ATC level?
At the ATC level, sit down and do an actual analysis to see if it's even possible for us to actually open up our other branches like SOS and charities and things like that. That's something that needs to be addressed at the ATC level. We need to see if we can get those up and running properly. Because especially with us just coming out of COVID, a lot of things were put on hold. And I personally would like to see them up and running, but I know that's something we should work at the ATC level.
Go ahead.
I don't have that much because I know John, so I have enough questions. But did you have questions you wanted to ask? You looked like you were about to say something. I didn't want to cut you off there.
I was trying to find the question in my head.
Allie?
I'll ask another one then.
Okay.
So as far as trying to get more involvement with the board level, more involvement, trying to encourage people into the other branches and everything, what are some things you think might be useful to help pull in more volunteers?
That's a very good question. I don't have a lot of experience in attracting people to do stuff like that. Honestly, the best source I found, or best way I've found to find good people for those kind of positions is just word of mouth. Just let it be known that we're actively seeking these people or people to fill these roles and go from there. I found that doing general posts like up on the ATC website doesn't necessarily help. It's more of an interpersonal communication thing that needs to happen. Is you need to actually talk with people that you think would be a good fit and explain to them what the role actually does, so they fully understand it, and that way they have the ability to ask questions right on the spot, as opposed to sending an email saying, "Hey, I got a couple questions about this," and then have to wait for the reply. I mean, that works, but to keep the enthusiasm and the energy and the excitement about wanting to find out what these positions actually do, it's best to be done in person.
Okay. Leaning on that part of what these positions do, so two questions. One, as you've been on the board for a while now, I'm assuming your position may have changed from some of your answers in your past election, but within the organization of ATC, what is the role of the board? What is the board's purpose?
The role of the board is to, for lack of a better term, govern the offshoots that we have that are underneath our organization. So Detour, SOS, charities, and so on and so forth. We essentially oversee the operations that they put on, I guess is the best way to put it. And we also approve any funding that they request for. And overall, just kind of keep an eye on how things are running. Occasionally have one of the board members actually show up to one of the events as they're scattered out, and just kind of see how they're going, answer questions for people that show up, be a physical representation of the board. I feel that if, as members of the board, if we occasionally show up to these events, like SOS events or charity events, it gives a better representation as the organization as a whole.
Okay. So with all the different branches we have, I know right now we don't have too many, but in the past we have had a number of people in those positions.
Correct.
Overall, as a board member, what do you feel is the minimum or maximum amount of time it should take someone to respond to some form of communication, be it internal or external?
My general rule of thumb is 48 hours, so 2 days. If I haven't heard from somebody that I'm trying to get a hold of after 3 days, then I will start pestering to try and get an actual answer from them. But I'm not going to be in a rush to get an answer like via email. If I need to get an answer right now, I'm going to call the person.
Let me ask you a question then.
Go for it.
One of the things that we started upon my arrival as president is a more open financial, we always are the subject of rumors that we're being paid or we're about to go under or we got $500,000 in the Swiss bank, blah, 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 blah. Do you think we've made enough steps? Do you think we made enough steps to be financially transparent to our members?
I feel we are. For example, at the beginning of every board meeting, or we go through the financials and where we're currently sitting, what we've had for income and what we have for expenses, and we go over that at the beginning of each board meeting. If people feel that's not transparent enough, please let us know so we can improve on it. You can send us an email at atcboard@animedetour.com. As far as I know, we're very open, and I've never had any issues with not understanding what some of the finances are, because if I don't know, I ask the question, and it gets answered.
Thank you. Go ahead if you have more.
In the past, we have had some issues with board members not performing their duties. I know typically one of the most common ones is the reviews, the annual reviews of the coordinators that is to be done by the board members. So we'll use that as an example. In situations like that, what is your stance on people that are not participating in the reviews, as well as for those that are not performing their duties, such as the reviews or the things? What repercussions do you feel there should be?
Well, on the topic of people not doing what they're supposed to as board members, my first thought is, why aren't they doing it? And before I try and make any kind of judgment on that, I try and find out what's going on. Maybe they're having a really rough week and they just haven't gotten to it yet. Or, who knows, maybe their mom just died or something like that. My approach would be something along the lines of figuring out what's going on and at the same time tie in whatever they're not doing, like board reviews. Just like, hey, I'm sorry you're going through a rough time. Can we expect a rating for, or the, damn it, brain fart, sorry. Can we expect that review from you in like a week or 2 weeks, or are you just not planning to do it? So just get information and find out what the root cause is, which will inevitably enable you to figure out a plan on how, either A, how to get it done, or B, find another route depending on what the situation is. If they're just doing it because they want to be malicious and they're just not responding to you, my vote would be to kick them off the board. If they're not responding, I mean, that's part of what we do as a board, is we communicate. And if you're not able or willing to communicate, you have no business being here. That's just my stance.
Okay. So kind of leaning on that that option for dismissal. Our current our bylaws, as they currently sit, is that if any officer of the board or other member is ever removed or dismissed from their position, that is at current a lifetime ban on occupying any position of officer within the organization.
Correct.
What is your stance on that?
My stance would be give it like a 5-year block, and that way it gives them the option of coming back if they wish, or at least gives the current board the opportunity to consider them again. Because 5 years can change a lot. I mean, look at COVID. It's only been 3 years for that, and look how much has changed.
A follow-up to that then.
Yes.
Let's say a board member's been removed.
Okay.
You don't, perhaps a proposal would be that if a board member is removed, they can run for election again at the next election cycle, because ultimately the board's decided on by the membership. Or would you think that it'd be necessary to have at least skip one election cycle? Some would say it'd be more democratic to, small d, say if they get removed from the board and they run again and the members want them on the board, that's what we should do, or do you think they should, because of negligence or inability, that they should be banned for your 5 years or something like that?
Well, I guess my first question to your answer would be, why were they removed? What were the circumstances around their removal? Was it because of something that was going on in their life that they weren't able to fulfill their duties, or was it being done maliciously? If it was being done maliciously, I would be fully in support of a ban across.
So you would put that additional language into a bylaw change?
I would, yes. And because of outside circumstances, I was not allowed to participate. Well, not allowed is not the proper term. I wasn't able to participate in the last review and modifications of the bylaws. So that would have been one of my recommendations, is to change the language of that. I know that it's something that I plan to look at and revisit at some point in the not too terribly distant future. Is just making some small modifications, not a complete overhaul. But I still think a complete overhaul should be done at least every 2 years.
So as we've been speaking of the bylaws and policies, what is your understanding of the legal obligations of a board member?
Do what you're supposed to and don't screw up. It can have both civil and federal consequences. Most of them either involve large chunks of money or jail time. And depending on what you did to mess up, could potentially threaten the 501c3 status of the organization. Anybody else?
When you have the list of questions, I'm done. Are you
I'm
good?
done.
Okay. Are you done, Joe? No, you're ready.
Either of you have questions?
No, they're on
They're next.
Oh, that's right. They're next.
Second.
That's right.
Yeah.
Step by step.
So the last question I have is something that's come up in a number of the last election cycles.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts and opinions on the current structure of voting rights and how to acquire them?
So let me see if I understand what you're actually asking for. You want my opinion on its current structure and how you get voting rights versus not getting them?
Correct.
Okay. I'm actually okay with that for the following reasons. I feel that if you are going to be actively voting for who's running the organization, you should be participating in the organization long enough to know what's going on. And I'm not saying that you should attend all the meetings, because you don't have to, but at least attend enough of them that you know what's going on, to be able to better understand what kind of person is needed for the position you're voting on.
Okay. That was my last question.
Okay. Thank you very much, Board, for asking our fellow board member a question for his re-election. At this time, we're going to go to our members who are either here present or in chat to see if they have any questions. Do you have any questions?
So,
Do please speak loudly and clearly so that...
now. So with COVID having changed the structure of how meetings occurred, do you believe it is important to show up to meetings in person? Or do you feel that virtually is enough? Or if there's just no difference at all?
Well, I guess that would depend on what position you have within detour, for example, or on the board. As far as the board goes, I have no problem with people wanting to attend virtually, especially if other board members, as long as you have both video and audio capabilities for being able to vote on anything that's necessary. As far as like detour stuff, same thing applies. If all you really want to do is find out, get like a status update, I have no problem with that. Same thing with voting by email. I'm fine with that. The only thing that might hinder that approach would be, do you need to talk to other people to get stuff done after the meeting? And oftentimes, it gets done a lot quicker if you talk in person.
Okay. Is there anything in chat that somebody has a question for John?
Not just yet.
Okay. We'll wait a few minutes unless you have more questions. And we'll wait a few minutes and we'll all look at John.
Very well.
Look.
You have the JetBlue feed on your phone?
No, I don't keep a picture of my dog.
Well, there's Bobby. Oh my gosh. Oh, but we're stuck. Anyway, but not exactly what I was looking for.
Still adorable though.
It's 68 degrees right now.
Yep.
While we're waiting for questions.
And insanely humid.
And it's going to be 37 degrees on Monday. And
Yep.
my question is, I chose to move back here. Why?
I'm wondering the same thing.
Because
About me, not you.
I've asked myself that question a few times too.
Good answer.
Mhm.
Good answer.
I'm here because my husband is here. And I haven't convinced him to move out of the house we just bought yet.
Fair enough.
You just bought a house and now you're going to ask him to move?
No. We bought a house in November
Oh. Well,
that
that's
I've
good.
now officially lived in for a month. Yay!
And now you're done with it.
No. That's
You
not-
have to mow the lawn?
Yes.
Okay, then you're going to be done with it.
I have a riding lawnmower. I'll be fine.
Oh, lucky.
Those are much
I need
better.
it. I have 2 acres to mow.
Fair. That is a hefty yard.
Uh-huh. I need it.
You need the whole yard, or you need the riding mower?
I need the riding mower.
Okay. I was gonna say, I was confused why you need 2 acres unless you got a farm.
I mean,
2 acres isn't really that much.
no.
How big is an acre? How big is an
You
acre?
have Google right in
Yeah,
front of
Google
you.
it.
I'm looking at others. I'm trying
You're
to.
in front of a computer. Use it.
I have a room full of smart people. I assumed one of you would know.
I know metric,
Hmm.
a hectare.
I grew
How
up
much is
on
that? I can
100
imagine.
meters by 100 meters.
Oh, so it's 300 by 300 feet.
No, because a 300 feet would be 36 inches times,
A meter is roughly 3 feet.
it's 39 inches. So,
He did say roughly.
roughly.
There you go.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
There's your answer.
43,560 square feet, if
Mhm.
there was ever that many.
So 43 by 1,000. Got it.
Uh-huh.
So, let me, where are you living at?
Andover.
Andover. That's
North of
Hastings?
Anoka.
What? No, that's
North
north
of
of Anoka. Hastings is that.
Hastings is southeast of us.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah, I know, that's
Google
where you
also
live.
says it's
Yes.
about the size of a football field.
I used to drive down to Winona.
Yeah, thereabouts.
And so,
Hastings is
okay. Let's see.
And my dad's property is 180.
Nice.
That's much more of a farm size.
Yeah, that's a farm.
Okay. It's been money. Is there any more questions in chat?
Nothing in chat.
Okay. Then, John, thank you very much for taking your time out of your busy afternoon and avoiding the bachelor party to, sorry, guys, he said it's during the break, to answer our questions. And, again, thank you again, Chelsea Buttons. Anyway, so
It's
this...
so weird to say it.
Yeah, well, that's because it's me. Anyway, so for those listening, here will be the procedures for the vote. By the end of next week, by the 1st, everyone who has eligibility to vote will receive an email with instructions on how to vote. The vote will take place on May 14th. That's correct, Tristan, right?
Yes.
Okay. There will be at-large positions and that will write in, and a treasurer position, that treasurer position that will be available for write-ins.
And secretary.
And secretary.
Yep.
So if you've, at a last minute, you wanted to join in, you have that ability. Please make sure that any campaigning that is done is polite and within the themes and the community standards that we like to
Adhere to.
maintain. Are you going to correct my language all the time? You don't get it. Anyway, joking.
You realize I'm married to a linguist, right?
No, I didn't know that. Nobody told me nothing.
Oh, he's a linguist.
Anyway, back to this. Thank you very much for attending this today. We appreciate your interest in making sure Anime Twin Cities and all its affiliates, like Anime Detour, continue in the future, both in compliance and in awesomeness. Have a great afternoon.
Hold on, actually.
Oh, there's a question?
Troy just chimed in. Said you had mentioned board members attending coordinator events.
Yes.
What expectations are there for board members' behavior at those events, if attending or staffing?
Be respectful, follow the rules. I'm not really sure what kind of an answer you're looking for here, Troy. But if you're approaching or if you're attending an event as a board member, I would expect that you have some form of identification showing your official position, like a name badge or something. Also, to be very polite and open to answering questions, be approachable, and make sure you represent your organization the way your organization expects you to behave. Is that what
We'll
you're
wait a
looking
few
for?
minutes if there's a follow-up
Yeah.
question.
Does that answer your question, Troy?
We'll wait for a few minutes for his follow-up question.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're done.
No, we're not.
It got paused at some point. It's not live.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
That makes sense. Thank you. Don't scare me.
Because
like
if we
that.
did the whole thing and nobody was, oh no, yeah, you've seen that anyway.
As a board member, how do you handle a board decision being made that perhaps you don't agree with, that members question you on or are upset about? How do you handle that situation?
Well, as honestly as I can. There have been more than my fair share of votes that have gone through here that I didn't agree with what was being voted on, and I voted in a manner that reflected that opinion. And I may have succeeded in not getting it done. I may not have. But ultimately, it's really boils down to, is what they're asking to be done logical? That's what it boils down to for me.
Okay, we'll wait a few minutes for follow-up. I think there's a delay of some sort, more than 5 minutes.
5 seconds, you mean?
No, 5 minutes, because he says he had 3 questions in there, and I only see 2.
I'm not seeing
Yeah, there's about a 7-second
any
delay.
questions.
But no, there was minutes, because he said he put 3 minutes questions in, and there's only 2, and it's been more than 30 seconds. So I'm not quite sure if there's a delay on the questions, which is embarrassing. And I apologize if anybody's still watching, that there's been seemed to be a much more, minutes-long delay before questions. So I was unaware of that when I closed it.
Roughly 6 seconds.
That's what I said.
But then he didn't. But didn't I ask for questions?
I don't know.
Okay, whatever. Hey, technology! Yay! That's why I like all us getting in the same room and no questions there. So, anyway. Okay. Well, we can all laugh at Dave, but I know Tristan.
I like just laugh at myself.
I've been
It's
touching
easier.
your shoulder, and I realized that might be an uncomfortable thing. I
I'm fine
apologize
with
if
it.
that's it. I just feel so close to you.
See, I was going to offer to take you out to dinner afterwards anyways.
Hey, get in line. He's taking me out to dinner first.
Whoa.
Yeah, don't worry about it. We're not arguing over you. We're just having a discussion.
Hey, there's plenty of me to go around.
Volcano locos.
There's plenty of me to go around. I mean,
Well, in that case,
by the pound, if you pay by the pound, I'm the rich man. Da, 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 da. Sorry, okay.
if I were a rich
Yeah.
man.
Okay. Is there another question? Is he got?
Troy has not posted any new questions.
Mm-hmm. Don't worry. Technical difficulties. Because I don't see his third. He said he had 3 questions. So we're waiting for a third question.
Okay.
I just don't see it chat.
Well, we'll wait for the third question.
He said that covers that question, yes. So I guess everything's been asked.
Well,
I think there's one more.
Let's just confirm chat and then we can go on. I mean, we're ahead of the
Well,
schedule.
His
And,
last message is that covers that question, yes.
okay. Okay, then wait a few seconds. More. Okay. He only had 2.
Oh.
Kept telling me 3.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so remember that speech I did at the end, which wasn't the end, and I apologize for that because I jumped the gun because, you know, I'm from New Jersey and I have to speed. That's what the state police tell me. Again, thank you for attending. We will be sending out the people who have election, not permission, not authority, what is election?
Privileges.
Privileges.
Voting rights.
Voting rights, voting privileges, same thing. When you have voting rights, you'll get an email from the board saying this is how you vote, and the vote will be on May 14th. Okay? Thank you very much for coming, and you can cut the stream whenever you need to.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you.